Monday's episode of Days of Our Lives is not about answers. It's about pressure. Pressure that's building underground. Pressure that's closing in on the DiMera legacy. And pressure that could force long-buried secrets into the light. By the end of December 15th, Salem will feel different. More dangerous. More unstable. And far more personal. With E.J. DiMera waking up inside a crypt, Susan Banks confronting Gwen face-to-face, Steve Johnson making a decision that could change everything, and Jada Hunter racing against time. This episode quietly sets the stage for something much bigger. So let's break it all down. Not just what happens, but what it really means. Let's start underground. In complete darkness, E.J. DiMera wakes up. There's no sense of time. No sense of place. Only the cold reality of stone walls and shallow breaths echoing around him. At first, E.J. is disoriented, his instincts scrambling to catch up with his surroundings. But it doesn't take long before the truth settles in. He's been thrown into the DiMera crypt. And he's not alone. Chad DiMera, Theo Carver, other hostages, all trapped together beneath the legacy that built their family, and may now destroy it. On the surface, E.J. is just another victim. Another name added to a growing list of carefully chosen targets. But that's exactly what makes this moment so unsettling. Because from the police's perspective, E.J. was already under suspicion. And now, conveniently, he's unavailable for questioning. Silenced, hidden, removed from the board. Chad and Theo quickly fill E.J. in on what little they know, and the tension inside the crypt becomes immediate and suffocating. Because E.J.'s presence raises a question no one can ignore. Is E.J. DiMera a victim, or is this the perfect alibi? Think about the implications. If E.J. is behind this chaos, being locked in the crypt shields him from scrutiny. If he's innocent, then someone understands DiMera psychology well enough to frame him with terrifying precision. Either scenario is dangerous. Because either way, E.J.'s credibility is collapsing. And then there's his reaction. E.J. doesn't panic. He doesn't lash out. He doesn't demand answers. Instead, he listens. He observes. He calculates. He absorbs every detail like a man already planning his escape, or his defense. That's the most chilling part. Whether he's guilty or not, one thing is certain, E.J. DiMera is already thinking several moves ahead. And in Salem, that alone makes him dangerous. Now let's go upstairs, to the DiMera mansion. This is where the tension turns deeply personal. Gwen Riacek is furious, emotionally raw and unraveling after E.J. accused her of exposing his secret. As far as E.J. knows, Leo Stark is responsible. But Gwen knows that story doesn't add up. She tried to warn Leo. She tried to protect herself. And now, with E.J. gone and chaos spreading, Gwen makes a desperate move. She brings in Susan Banks. The one person E.J. never truly believes could betray him. Susan insists, without hesitation, that she would never expose her son. Her love is absolute. Her loyalty unquestioned, but Gwen doesn't back down. And this is where the confrontation becomes fascinating. Because Gwen understands something Susan either can't, or won't, acknowledge. Susan doesn't need intention to cause damage. She doesn't operate by logic. She operates by instinct. Susan has visions. She senses things others miss. She speaks in riddles that sometimes sound harmless, until they aren't. And in Salem, intuition often arrives before evidence. This showdown isn't loud. It isn't explosive. It's uncomfortable. It's about perception versus belief. Susan truly believes her love shields E.J. from harm. Gwen believes Susan's very presence puts him in danger. And that leaves viewers with a haunting question. What if Susan already knows something she hasn't fully processed, or hasn't dared to say out loud? Because when Susan Banks senses truth, it has a way of surfacing, whether anyone is ready for it or not. And in this case, that truth could shatter everything. Meanwhile, Steve Johnson is getting closer to something he doesn't like. It's not a clear suspect. It's not a clean motive. It's a pattern. And Steve Johnson has spent his entire life learning to recognize patterns that other people overlook. By Monday, one thing is clear: the situation with Jeremy Horton can no longer be ignored. Jeremy has already been questioned by Maggie Horton Kuriakis, a move that puts him on the radar, but not under full suspicion. On paper, he's still just the new teacher. But Steve knows better. Because Alex Kuriakis and Holly Jonas haven't just found strange letters, they've found warnings. The tone is obsessive, the wording is personal, and the escalation is undeniable. These aren't random notes written by someone seeking attention. They're test messages, signals sent by someone gauging how close they can get without being caught. Steve has seen this before, cases where the real danger doesn't announce itself. It studies, it waits, it adapts. So now Steve faces a dangerous choice. Does he confront Jeremy directly, forcing a reaction and risking that the real threat goes underground? Or does he hold back, pretending nothing is wrong, hoping to catch Jeremy, or whoever is behind this, when they make their next move? Either path carries consequences. Confront too soon, and the predator disappears. Wait too long, and Stephanie could become the next target. Steve's decision on Monday won't come with sirens or handcuffs. But it will quietly shift the entire trajectory of this storyline. Because the moment someone realizes Steve Johnson is watching, the game changes. And it rarely changes for the better. Back at Alex and Stephanie's apartment, the atmosphere changes. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but unmistakably. Something feels wrong. At first, it's subtle, an object that doesn't seem to be where it was left. A silence that feels heavier than it should. A sense that the space no longer belongs solely to them. Maybe they find evidence someone's been inside. Maybe nothing is obviously missing. Or maybe that's the most terrifying part: everything looks almost normal. The show keeps the details deliberately vague, and that choice is intentional. Because fear doesn't require proof. Once the thought takes hold, that someone has been watching, listening, learning, there's no going back. Every sound becomes amplified. Every shadow stretches longer. Every moment alone feels unsafe. Alex, already rattled by the letters, spirals quickly. His instincts tell him the danger is real, and getting closer. Stephanie tries to stay grounded. She wants logic, explanations, control. But fear is contagious. And once it enters a relationship, it reshapes everything: how you speak, how you move, how you trust your surroundings. This storyline is no longer a mystery. It's a psychological descent. And Monday feels like the moment when speculation hardens into certainty. They're not being paranoid. They're being watched. And whoever is doing it isn't finished yet. Now let's talk about momentum, because this is where the pace of the story shifts. Jada Hunter doesn't hesitate. The moment another DiMera disappearance is confirmed, she sees what others are still struggling to accept. This isn't coincidence. This isn't chaos. This is strategy. Each victim is selected. Each move is timed. Each disappearance serves a larger purpose. Working alongside Rafe Hernandez, Jada changes her approach. Instead of chasing clues left behind, she begins asking a far more dangerous question: who benefits from what happens next? That shift in thinking changes everything. Jada starts expanding the search parameters. She re-examines connections that were previously dismissed as irrelevant. She looks for the thread that ties personal vendettas to a larger design. And then there's Kat Green. Reaching out to Kat would be a calculated risk, but also a necessary one. Kat lives in the gray areas of Salem. She operates close to secrets, close to danger, and close to people who don't want to be seen. If Jada pulls Kat into this investigation, the dynamic shifts instantly. Because Kat doesn't just know things, she senses when something is about to break. Jada's urgency sends a clear message: she knows the clock is ticking. And once law enforcement starts thinking ahead of the crime instead of reacting to it, that's when the people hiding in the shadows begin to panic. Monday, December 15th is not an episode about answers. It's an episode about alignment. Every major storyline in Salem is quietly locking into place, forming a pattern that won't fully reveal itself until it's too late to stop. Look at the board. The Demera crypt, filled with captives and unanswered questions. EJ's credibility collapsing from all sides, Susan Banks sensing truths she can't fully articulate, Gwen growing more desperate as control slips away, Steve Johnson circling a threat that refuses to surface, Alex and Stephanie realizing they're being watched, Jada accelerating the investigation before the next move hits. These are not isolated events. They are synchronized. Someone understands Salem's emotional pressure points. Someone knows how fear spreads faster than facts. And someone is weaponizing history, family loyalty, guilt, love, and legacy. The crypt itself isn't just a location. It's a statement. A monument to buried secrets. A reminder of decaying power. A warning about what happens when control is maintained through fear. Monday is the episode that seals the doors, tightens the net, and removes the illusion of safety. Because once alignment is complete, chaos isn't coming. It's already here. Monday's Days of Our Lives episode is deceptively quiet. There are no massive explosions. No instant confessions. No clean resolutions. But beneath the surface, everything is shifting. With EJ trapped underground and his innocence in question. With Susan and Gwen clashing over intuition versus truth. With Steve making a choice that could expose, or protect, a predator. With Alex and Stephanie spiraling into fear. And with Jada racing against time. Salem has crossed a threshold. This is no longer about what happened. It's about what's about to happen next. So now it's your turn. Is EJ a victim, or the architect of his own alibi? Is Susan shielding her son, or unknowingly putting him in danger? And who do you believe is truly pulling the strings behind this chaos? Share your theories in the comments. And if you want to stay ahead of every twist, reveal, and psychological turn, make sure you subscribe. Because in Salem, the darkest chapter is just beginning.